morning, everybody. It's great to see you today, and here we are again. I'm here on the deck enjoying my morning, Joe, and a chance to just chat with you for a few minutes. And I thought I'd share something with you this morning that maybe you're all familiar with now. We're in the middle of July, summer weather is here, and that is some ice water. I thought about having my own glass of ice water, but I'd rather have my Joe with me today, first thing in the morning. And I got to thinking, everybody has gone through this. You all know how it works. You take a glass of water, you plop those ice cubes in it, and then something amazing happens. Those ice cubes float on the surface of the water. Now, okay, you don't have to write about this. You can if you want to, but you're probably thinking, well, there's nothing amazing about that. That's just what ice does. It floats on the surface of water. But I'd like to ask you why. That is, have you thought about that? And have you considered the fact that it's really not supposed to? With almost every other substance that we're familiar with, it works just the opposite. If it's able to turn from a liquid to a solid as the temperature of that liquid cools, um, it gains in weight. And you know what? Does the same thing. And you've demonstrated this yourself. If you've ever done any diving in a lake, you can feel it. You know that the coldest water is at the bottom of the lake. It's not at the surface. Because water functions the same way almost every other liquid does on the Earth. If you take water that's 70 degrees, for example, and compare that with water that's 60 degrees, the water that's 60 degrees um, is heavier than the water that's 70 degrees. That's why it sinks to the bottom. And if you compare water that's 60 degrees with water that's 50 degrees, the water that's 50 degrees, the cooler water is heavier. You take water that's 50 degrees and compare that with water that's 40 degrees. The water that's 40 degrees, cooler water, is heavier. If you can take water that's 40 degrees and compare that with water that's 39 degrees, all of a sudden that whole process reverses. It flips upside down. And that water that's 39 degrees is actually lighter. The heavier water is 40 degrees. And that process continues until you get all the way down to 32 degrees and it turns into ice and it floats on the surface of the water. But isn't that interesting and amazing that this whole process flips upside down at that temperature? It's 39 degrees, where it reverses itself, and it'll continue until ice is formed. You see, it's not supposed to do that, but it does. Another thing you may think to yourself, well, it's lucky for us that it does, because that process is necessary in order for life to exist on planet Earth. If ice continued the natural process and sank to the bottom of that lake or river or stream, it would set in motion a chain reaction that would eventually turn the whole lake or the whole stream into solid ice. And the fact that ice stays on the surface is necessary for life to exist on planet Earth. That liquid underneath the ice sustains life, and we all need that. In effect, ice on the surface of that lake actually forms a kind of insulation that prevents the water underneath from getting colder than it would otherwise. So, yeah, we sure are lucky that it turned out that way. But let me suggest to you that it has nothing to do with luck. Ice does that, and it acts the way it's not supposed to act because God, in order to sustain life on this planet, made it that way. I think that's the bottom line. My son Adam shared with me, gave me a book Father's Day called Is Atheism Dead by Eric Metaxas. I have just thoroughly enjoyed reading that book, and it goes in through some of the scientific discoveries in recent ages and archaeological discoveries that all point to the fact that God is there, that God cares, and I especially enjoy the science part of it. And that illustration was one of the things that he brings up. There's so much more that we've discovered that all supports what the Bible tells us. Bereshit bara Elohim hashamim wa'aretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And as you read the story and the account of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 1, it sounds like, unlike what you would think, that God created the earth first and then configured the earth, and not just the earth, but the sun and the moon and stars and the universe around us in order to sustain life that he would also create on planet earth. Now, I don't agree with everything that Eric says in his book. I don't agree. I don't think that the earth or the universe is 13.8 billion years old. I think the universe, as well as every other part of creation, was created with the appearance of age, just like the plants and the trees and the animals and the human beings. They were all created mature. The animals were all adults and able to reproduce. The trees were bearing fruit, and the plants were bearing seeds. But they had the appearance of history that they did not have, even though they were on day one in terms of their history. And I think the universe was created in the same way. But even that time period of 13.8 billion years points to a day one that demonstrates that God made it all. It had to start there from something. Nothing did not explode into something all by itself. And that's why I've appreciated that book. I don't debate with atheists, and that's not why I like it so much. But one of the things I've appreciated about it is it's given me a new and even greater understanding of the amazing mind of God. I've preached it sometimes, and I've tried to help people understand that His ways are not our ways, and His thoughts are not our thoughts. They are high; we cannot obtain unto them. But reading that, some of the discoveries that we have made, that every one of them points out to the amazing mind that made all of this, that created it, that conceived it, and then brought it into being. There are billions of stars out there. We don't know how many billions of stars there are, or how many billions of galaxies anyway are out there in the universe. But He made every one of them in a certain way. And not only that, the Bible says that He gave every one of them a name. What a mind our God has. And that's what I wanted to share with you this morning. That God's mind is beyond comprehension. Bow the knee before Him today.